What if the very thing you're trying to escape is the exact force that was designed to shape you? What if pain isn't a punishment, but a process? And what if your deepest suffering isn't life going wrong, but life working exactly as it should? The Stoics didn't sugarcoat pain. They didn't try to escape it, silence it, or avoid it. They did something far more radical. They used it. They believed that adversity is not in the way. It is the way. And until you stop resisting what is, you will never access who you were meant to become. According to Marcus Aurelius, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Most people never realize this. They're locked in a silent war with life itself. They try to bend reality to fit their preferences, but reality doesn't negotiate. It doesn't conform to your expectations. It simply is. And that, according to the Stoics, is the starting point of wisdom. We live in a culture that glorifies comfort and ease. That tells you to follow your bliss, avoid pain, and curate a life that looks perfect. But the Stoics believed the opposite. That truth is forged in fire, that growth is inseparable from struggle, that suffering is not an interruption, it is instruction. As Epictetus put it, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This changes everything, because it shifts the focus from the outside world, which you can't control, to your inner world, which you can. When you stop demanding that life be different, and instead learn to use it exactly as it is, that's when transformation begins. Now that you're here, welcome to the Stoic Lighthouse, where ancient wisdom lights the way through modern darkness. If this resonates with you, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps spread this message to those who need it most. And now, we step into one of the most misunderstood but powerful concepts in all of Stoicism, a principle that can turn pain into purpose and chaos into clarity. Amor Fati, the love of fate. Let's begin. Number 1. Amor Fati, the secret of the strong. To most people, the phrase, love your fate, sounds insane. Why would anyone love pain, loss, betrayal, or injustice? Why would someone choose to embrace what others spend their entire lives trying to avoid? The answer is simple. Those who do not love their fate become prisoners of it, but those who learn to embrace it become untouchable, unbreakable, free. This is what the Stoics understood. Amor Fati is not about giving up. It is about taking control. It is not a poetic phrase. It is a mindset forged in the fire of adversity. Friedrich Nietzsche, who helped revive Stoic thought in modern philosophy, described Amor Fati as the ability to say, I want nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not for all eternity. That is not weakness, that is power. Not tolerating reality but falling in love with it. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who endured war, plague, and personal tragedy, wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That is Amor Fati, not rejection of reality, not escape from pain, but transformation. It means taking the worst parts of your story and using them as fuel. Becoming the kind of person who can look at hardship and say, I will use this too. Amor Fati is not naive optimism. It does not ignore pain. It walks through it. It looks directly at loss, failure, and rejection and says, this will make me stronger. What most people run from, the Stoic uses. What most people avoid, the Stoic absorbs and turns into strength. William B. Irvine, one of the most influential modern Stoics, explains that true resilience begins when we stop expecting life to make us comfortable. He teaches that every difficulty is a training ground. Every setback is an opportunity to strengthen our inner fortress. Every challenge is a message. Sharpen your mind, strengthen your soul, and rise. He wrote, the Stoic does not merely endure suffering. He learns from it, uses it, and in the process becomes greater because of it. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, lost everything in a shipwreck, but instead of collapsing, he wandered into a bookstore. There, he discovered philosophy. He later said that the worst day of his life became the beginning of everything that mattered. That is the secret of the strong. It is not that they never fall, it is that they fall forward. They turn pain into clarity, struggle into growth, setbacks into discipline. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they know what it creates. Amor Fati is a commitment to stop waiting for ideal circumstances. It is the mindset that says, this moment is enough, this pain is part of the path. This life, as it is, will be my material. It is the Stoics' quiet revolution. To face life with open eyes and an open heart, and to say, thank you, I will take it all. Number 2. Mental alchemy, why loving fate works. Most people try to survive adversity. The Stoics learned to transform it. They weren't just seeking calm in the storm, they were turning the storm into fuel. That's the secret behind Amor Fati. It works because it rewires the way you interpret reality. It turns life into a kind of spiritual laboratory, where even chaos becomes useful. This is not philosophy for comfort seekers. It is for those who are ready to become alchemists of the mind. According to Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is more than poetic reflection. It is cognitive warfare. Amor Fati does not ask you to love pain for pain's sake. It teaches you to use pain, to transmute it into growth. This is the Stoic art of mental alchemy. A technique that transforms every unwanted event into an opportunity to strengthen character, deepen wisdom, and train resilience. Epictetus taught that nothing outside your mind can truly harm you. Not poverty, not illness, not even death. Only your judgments about those things can shake you. The modern world teaches us to avoid discomfort. Epictetus trained people to confront it and reinterpret it. He said, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. This is the raw material for mental transformation. When you change the way you view hardship, you change what hardship is. Pain becomes training, frustration becomes feedback, failure becomes refinement. Amor Fati is not passive acceptance. It is the disciplined act of turning life into your personal forge. Modern thinkers like Ryan Holiday have brought this ancient concept into practical, everyday life. In his book, The Obstacle is the Way, he explains that perception is not a luxury. It is a weapon. You don't have to like what happens. You just have to decide that it will serve you. In doing so, you remove its power to paralyze you. And this is where mental alchemy begins. You stop wishing life were different. You stop negotiating with pain. You take your circumstances, no matter how difficult, and ask one question: how can I use this? Chrysippus, one of the great early Stoics, believed that every challenge had an embedded opportunity for virtue. Whether it was patience, courage, discipline, or humility, life was constantly giving us the exact ingredients we needed to practice philosophy in real time. This is what separates Stoicism from passive endurance. It is not about gritting your teeth and waiting for the storm to pass. It is about learning to build while the rain falls, to forge strength in the flood, to not only survive the storm, but to become something greater because of it. Amor Fati works because it rewires your entire mental operating system. It doesn't remove pain, it removes its power to defeat you. And that, according to the Stoics, is the highest human freedom. Number 3. The Stoic Golden Key: how to use Amor Fati in real life. Philosophy is useless if it can't survive a Monday morning. That was the Stoic standard. And Amor Fati, no matter how poetic it sounds, was never meant to stay on parchment. It was meant to be lived, not just in crisis, but in traffic. Not just during heartbreak, but during boring meetings and cold showers. That is where the practice begins. That is where the Stoic Golden Key is tested in real life. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, didn't preach Amor Fati from comfort. He found it after losing everything in a shipwreck. From that disaster, he built a philosophy that demanded one thing: radical cooperation with reality. Not half acceptance, not reluctant endurance, full integration. He taught that nature, or what we now might call reality, is not your enemy. It is your training partner, and everything it throws at you is a tool to reveal your weakness, a tool to develop your strength, a tool to push you beyond comfort and toward virtue. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. That is not metaphor. That is instruction. Your power is not in controlling events, but in controlling your perception of those events. Amor Fati becomes real when you stop trying to edit life and start engaging with it fully. Right here, right now. Socrates, though not a Stoic, laid the mental foundation. He taught that virtue matters more than survival. That discomfort, injustice, even death lose their sting when met with clarity of purpose. He modeled Amor Fati centuries before the phrase existed, accepting his trial, his condemnation, even his execution with unshakable peace. Modern thinkers like Viktor Frankl bring this even closer to us. A Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, Frankl showed that when you can't change your environment, you still retain the last human freedom: your attitude. In the most brutal conditions imaginable, he found meaning, and that, he argued, made suffering bearable, even purposeful. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." This is Amor Fati in motion, not theory, practice. And it starts small. You don't need to face a catastrophe to begin. Start with your irritation when someone interrupts you. Start with your disappointment when plans fall through. Start with your impulse to complain about weather, traffic, noise. William B. Irvine suggests reframing even minor discomforts as exercises in Stoic training. When you feel frustration rise, do not resist it. Observe it, step outside of it, use it. That's the golden key. Learning to shift from "why is this happening to me" to "what is this training me for?" As Heraclitus said centuries before the Stoics, character is destiny, and character is built in repetition, so build. Use every annoyance, every failure, every embarrassment as clay, not because it feels good, but because it sharpens you, because you want to be ready when the real storms come. Amor Fati is not just for philosophers, it's for parents running late, for workers passed over for promotion, for athletes who fall short, for creators who are misunderstood. It is for every ordinary human being who decides that life will not break them, it will build them. Apply it daily. Not perfectly, but persistently. That's how the golden key stops being a concept and becomes a way of life. Number 4. The obstacle is the way, real stories of transformation. When we talk about Amor Fati, it can still sound abstract, like a noble ideal that belongs more to emperors and philosophers than to real, flawed people. But the Stoics didn't teach concepts to be admired. They gave us weapons to be used. And nothing proves the power of those ideas more than the stories of people who lived them, ordinary humans who faced extraordinary pain and used it. Take Admiral James Stockdale, an American fighter pilot shot down during the Vietnam War. He spent 7 years as a prisoner of war, tortured repeatedly, isolated from the outside world. What kept him from breaking? Stockdale had studied Epictetus. He had trained his mind in Stoic principles before his capture. And during his captivity, he didn't just survive, he led. He resisted. He protected his men and his integrity. Years later, he said that Stoicism saved his life, not by making the pain go away, but by teaching him that he could endure it without giving up who he was. Stockdale wrote, "I never lost faith in the end of the story." That is, Amor Fati, not blind hope, clear resolve, the refusal to waste suffering. Ryan Holiday retells this story in The Obstacle is the Way, showing that what we call hardship, the Stoics call raw material. He points out that if you look across history, the greatest moments of transformation almost always begin with a setback. Failure, illness, loss. These are not signs of being off course, they are the course. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This isn't just true for military heroes or ancient rulers. It's true for entrepreneurs, artists, parents, and anyone willing to face pain with purpose. J.K. Rowling was rejected by multiple publishers, living close to poverty when she wrote Harry Potter. Instead of giving up, she used the rejection as fuel. She later said that hitting rock bottom became the foundation on which she built her life. Even Theodore Roosevelt, before becoming president, lost his wife and mother on the same day. Most people would collapse. He went into the wilderness, rebuilt himself, and came back with a fierce clarity of mission. The pain didn't break him, it formed him. In every case, we see the same pattern. The obstacle becomes the teacher, suffering becomes transformation, the wound becomes the source of power. This is the path Amor Fati reveals, not one without scars, but one where every scar tells a story of becoming stronger. Heraclitus said, "Out of every 100 men, one is a warrior." The warrior isn't the one who avoids pain, it's the one who turns pain into strength. And you don't need to be in a war zone or a prison cell to begin that work. Your obstacle, whatever it is your invitation to rise, to endure, to become who you were meant to be. That's what Amor Fati unlocks, not comfort, courage. Number 5, forging steel, how to make Amor Fati a habit. Amor Fati is not a one-time revelation, it is a daily decision. Like forging steel, it takes repeated exposure to heat, pressure, and time. You don't become someone who embraces fate in a single moment. You become that person through conscious repetition, by choosing again and again to meet life as it is, not as you wish it were. The Stoics didn't leave this to chance. They trained for it, systematically, relentlessly. Seneca, one of the most practical of all Stoics, didn't just talk about resilience. He practiced voluntary discomfort. He would sleep on the ground, wear rough clothing, eat plain meals, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he wanted to inoculate himself against fear. He knew that if you can become familiar with discomfort, then you no longer need to fear it. He was training his body and mind to say, even this I can endure. He wrote, "Set aside now and then a number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, is this the condition that I feared?" Modern Stoics like Jocko Willink echo this through action. A retired Navy SEAL commander, Jocko teaches that discipline is freedom. His entire philosophy could be summarized in one word: good. No matter what happens, missed opportunity, setback, failure, his response is the same: good. That means we have a chance to get better. This is Amor Fati in motion. It's the conditioning of the mind to immediately reframe reality through strength, but the habit doesn't build itself. You need a system. William B. Irvine suggests a method called negative visualization, a mental rehearsal of loss. Picture what you fear. Picture failure, loss, embarrassment, death. Not to become morbid, but to sharpen appreciation, to stop sleepwalking through life, to remember what matters. That kind of reflection builds gratitude and hardens resolve. He explains, by contemplating the impermanence of things, we become more grateful for what we have and less fearful of losing it. Chrysippus, too, believed that philosophy had to be habitual, that you couldn't merely agree with truth, you had to embody it. That's why the Stoics created daily practices: journaling, self-examination, morning reflection, evening review. Not rituals for tradition's sake, but tools for transformation. Naval Ravikant, a modern entrepreneur heavily influenced by Stoicism, reminds us that happiness is a skill. He argues that if you don't train your mind to be at peace with what is, you will always be enslaved by what isn't. In a world addicted to external change, he promotes internal stability. That is the Stoic blueprint. Here's how you begin forging steel. In the morning, set an intention. Whatever happens today, I will use it. Throughout the day, catch yourself resisting life and flip the frame. Ask, how is this serving me? At night, review what tested you. What moments made you stronger? What can you do better tomorrow? This is how Amor Fati becomes more than an idea. It becomes a posture, a lens, a habit. The forge doesn't care who you were yesterday. It cares only about who you are becoming, and you are becoming steel. Everything you've been through, every loss, every failure, every disappointment has brought you to this moment. And in this moment, you have a choice. You can resent your fate, resist it, fight against what cannot be changed, or you can decide to become something rare, someone who doesn't just survive pain, but uses it, someone who doesn't run from the fire, but walks into it and comes out sharper, clearer, stronger. That is what the Stoics meant by Amor Fati, not passive acceptance, creative collaboration. You are not just the subject of fate, you are its co-author. You are the artist and the clay. Every challenge molds you, but only if you let it. Only if you choose to step into the role of creator, not victim. Not asking life to get easier, but choosing to become tougher, wiser, and more grounded. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the universe is transformation. Life is opinion. And what will your opinion be? That this world is unfair, painful, too difficult to bear, or that it is a forge where you can shape something meaningful out of the raw material you've been given. Stoicism doesn't promise comfort. It offers clarity. It doesn't shield you from suffering. It teaches you how to suffer well. And in doing so, it gives you access to something deeper than pleasure or success. It gives you peace. Not the peace that comes from avoiding difficulty, but the kind that comes from mastering it. Now I'd love to hear from you. What part of today's message hit you the hardest? What obstacle are you currently facing that you can now see as part of the path? Drop it in the comments below. Your story may help someone else walk through theirs. And if this video brought you clarity, share it, like it. Subscribe to the Stoic Lighthouse and help spread this light to others who are still walking through the dark. In our next video, we'll explore a surprising truth the Stoics understood, a truth about happiness that most people miss completely. If you've ever wondered what lasting peace and fulfillment really require, you'll want to see it. Remember, the fire that burns you today can be the same fire that forges your future. See you in the next video.